Alrighty, good morning everybody. It is Friday, May 24th, 2024. I couldn't be here yesterday, so I do want to go back and take a look at what happened not only yesterday, but the day before that, and do a review of that as well. So let's go ahead and jump back and go to the 22nd. So we're going to be looking at Wednesday's price action here, and I just want to show you guys. It was, in my opinion, a pretty easy day on Wednesday. And why is that? Well, because first of all, in the pre-market, you had a great opportunity to go ahead and try 50% of the previous day. I don't know how often this becomes a great entry in the chart. And you would have captured the whole push that led to the resistance of the morning. So there was a great opportunity there as we were doing our pre-market and before we started the pre-market to try that. And then you should have known you could have taken profit around the VWAP, which did try to hold. You could have took profit right around the Hopeful and right around the previous daily close. And as you can see, when they came up to the previous daily close, I mean, we opened, about 10 points away, and then they came right to it, peaked above, and then that began the bearish move of the day. So maybe around the open, a little bit choppy, right? So they did hold VWAP on the pullback there, but then the peak above and fail happened, and this is where we got our nice push lower, and there was kind of a stair step because price came up and knocked off of the previous daily close, then couldn't get through the Hopeful, and then we began this nice push lower. It wasn't enough of a bounce to even come back and test the 50% level, which by the way was this really nice structure zone, right? So would have made sense to come up and test into it, but they more so test the morning low, right? They bounced up and came right to the low of the morning, and then this began the sell-off. And as you can see, they held the back end of the FMA on that first duck down through the low of the day, came right to the FMA, and then if you were being really patient, well, what do you know? You got your crossovers, the first test of the 200 moving average with divergence to the tick, nearly zero risk, and you could have got this really nice sell-off. Let's see, about nearly 20 points to the downside, right? Just short of 20 points. And then from there, it did get a little tricky because the bulls came back in and we got this nice inflection and push back up towards the end of the day. Now, the end of the day was tricky because price got this big, now this is probably in the extended trading hours here, but we get this big kind of washout at the end of the day. And the push from the low of the day back up, there wasn't anything really going on in here. It was kind of noisy. There weren't any clean holds, just how it is sometimes. But they did finally come back. Notice how we stair-stepped down the levels. Actually was a test of the previous daily high all the way back in the Globex. Then it was the previous daily close. Then it was Hopeful. They did push through it by 2 points. It wasn't very much. That right there is 41.5. That is 43.5. It went through it by exactly 2 points, and then we came down, and like I said, they didn't come back to test 50% of the previous day, but eventually they did make it back to come up and get that little peak above and fell right into it. And that peak above was, again, just 1.5 points. So if you did try a short, noticing the divergence, noticing that peak above, you would have got this nice 20-point pullback, right? From 35 to 15 and beyond. So there were still some good opportunities, and like I said, that textbook tag of the 200 in the downtrend with divergence would have been a great little entry there, as it was pretty clear that the bears were now in control. So that's how Wednesday went. Like I said, a little messy towards the end of the day there, and then you got this beautiful hold off 50% of the previous day, which would have been that next stair step, right? Let's go ahead and look at what happened here coming into yesterday's market. So in the overnight session, not last night, but the night before, you can see that the bulls tried to continue to rally, right? So they held VWAP, they held VWAP, and they continued to push all throughout the overnight session until we got to the open yesterday. And if you guys remember, we got a pretty nice little correction yesterday. And here is where the market opened. So again, in the overnight session before yesterday morning, you had a great opportunity to get long on the top end of the VWAP on 2 tests there. Again, nearly zero risk for this nice push. And if you caught the first test, you got yourself a nice 20-25 point push. If you got in a little later, back in the early morning yesterday, you got yourself another 10-15 points to the upside. Now the market opened yesterday and it was just a really aggressive push. As you can see, when we're in an aggressive move one way or the other, the market loves to hold the back end of the FMA. So you could have quite literally shorted the FMA the whole way down, right? And you would have just been able to short and short and short and short and short, and you would have just built up a huge bearish position there, and then hopefully took some profit down right around 50% of the previous day in case that held. You should have caught a pretty good push, and you even got a nice little tag at the back end. Whoops, wrong button there. Nice little tag at the back end of the previous daily high with that nice little tag, and then we began the hold of the FMA all the way down, right? So good opportunities if you were going to get aggressive there. Great opportunities to ride this all the way down, at least to 50% of the previous day, which is where I would have taken my profit. And then from there, there's the first tag of the 200 with divergence in a downtrend with our crossover. And once again, yesterday, here's another clean example of why I love this trade. Does it work every time we see a crossover and price pushing lower and tagging the 200? No. But I do know that when it works great. We take limited risk, and typically that could be the continuation of a big move. Now, it just happened to be we were right at the end, and there's no way to know that when you're trading, right? There's no way to know what's going to happen next. We could have kept going for another 50 points to the downside, but unfortunately, by the time you got short off the 200, you only were able to get 10 points out of it, which is still a beautiful trade from 32 to 22. And actually, you would have been lucky to have grabbed that 10-pointer. You might have only made 9. But neither here nor there, still a great trade. And then you even got another opportunity to try it. It just didn't quite get very far. And then you can see we got sideways for a little while, so tricky in here, right? You could have probably started to try a long, didn't go anywhere, got off the FMA. Could have tried a short, noticing that we were failing with divergence for the continuation lower off the back end of the 200. Didn't work, right? And then it just kind of chopped and chopped, and then finally we got the continuation lower. There again is that textbook trade I love, and it was a peak above and failed, bearish divergence in the orientation we want to see. But the key thing that I try to teach you guys is if you're in a trade like that, let's zoom in, and you're getting your pullback and it's looking real sexy, but then this happens and they hold the FMA and it starts coming back, well, now at that point, yeah, you could get a retest of the high in a rotation, but at that point it's no longer the trade I want to be in, right? I want that first test of the 200 with the divergence in the downtrend, and if it works and follows through, great, I get my trade. But if it can't even get through the FMA, and a lot of times it'll come right back and kiss it to the tick and come back. And hey, sometimes I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to get out because it doesn't quite do what I want on the first test. And it'll come back up and maybe stop me out of break even and then go. But it's not the type of trade I want to be in, because more than likely you're going to get something like that. And so I like the first tag. And if we get this type of thing where it comes back, I'm no longer interested, right? I just want to get in on the tag and hopefully capture that 5, 10, 20 point push from there. So didn't quite get a lot of follow through on this example. And then we got a little bit of a bullish push. midday here. Let's go ahead and zoom this back out. Came all the way back up and just could not get through VWAP, right? So, I mean, these are clues. If you're watching the market and you're trading, if the bulls come all the way back up 20 points and then they just struggle right around VWAP, right? And you notice the first struggle, notice that. Beautiful 38 retrace right into the previous daily close. And then comes back up in a bullish looking reversal pattern here, and then bam, fails right in front of the high. This is something I teach. When you have a major high in the market, wherever you are, and they come back up and they test the high, or in the same thing in a bearish market, if they test the low, and it fails right in front, gets back through VWAP in this case, this is the context that we're using, that's a pretty good clue. And then you break the previous low, you get down through 50% of the previous day, and then it becomes clear this is probably just a temporary bounce for a continuation, because you just cannot get through VWAP there. And then finally you get this beautiful, beautiful bearish market to jump in and get short. Of course, you had to be really, really aggressive on your entries off of the FMA, because it never really came back to the 200 until way later in the day here, right? So we get a tag nearly a tick away from it, so unfortunately didn't tag it. And then they came down, and interestingly enough, price came right into 50% of the previous week and tried to hold below it, right? You got some trades off the back end of it, but then just could not continue going, and now here we are recovering right around 50% of the previous week, right? So pretty aggressive sell-off at the end of the day there, or towards the end of the day. It never really got enough of a bounce to even come into the 200, except for this one example here. And I don't know what to tell you. In that type of situation, you just have to be pretty aggressive if you want to jump into some of these type of trades. And then that brought us here into the overnight session for today. And as you can see now, the market came down and missed our roadmap level by 1.5 points. And if you zoom back and look at previous price action for the last, let's say, month or two, there's a whole lot going in the chart right here. There's a reason why we have a scaffolding level sitting right here. And it's not surprising we got the rotation within 2 points on either side of that level. Remember, this is really a high time frame zone. 2 points on either side, major zone of expected support. So I could have came in before the pre-market yesterday and just kind of highlighted, hey, major area. Let's just look at it here on the 60-minute chart. Major area of resistance, right? This is the low of yesterday. Major resistance back on May 15th. And then we come back here. And what is that 5273 area? This whole pocket right around our scaffolding level. You see how price came in and hold and hold and hold. Price gets below, holds, 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 holds. There's something going on in the chart right there. And then what do you know? Yesterday, they came right down to it and bounced, right? And now we're finding resistance right at the next major resistance area in the chart. So let's go ahead and jump up